Welcome back. All right, career video. How does that sound to everybody? And I'm going to do one on a pretty controversial figure in Gary Suter. Gary Suter is the uncle to current National Hockey League player Ryan Suter, and numerous times over the years I have accidentally referred to Ryan as Gary because it's what happens when you're old and you remember the previous generation, especially since they're both offensive defensemen, but at least Ryan Suter plays a much cleaner game than Gary Suter. That is absolutely, I don't think anybody's going to argue with that on me with me on that one either. So Gary Suter, drafted 180th overall in 1984. This was a deal. So basically what happens is 1985, the Calgary Flames, Kari Eloranta has left the team. He's headed back over to Finland. And so without Kari Eloranta, they need an offensive-minded defenseman. And in comes Gary Suter, and they love him. And they immediately put him in a pairing with Al MacInnis. This was a pairing that was absolutely ridiculous in the mid to late 80s. 80 games played for him that first season. 18 goals, 50 assists, 68 points for a rookie defenseman. In the playoffs, 10 games, 2 goals, 8 assists, 10 points. He wins the Calder. He's in the All-Star game. And, of course, that was the first time the Flames went all the way to the final. He gets hurt during those playoffs, so he only plays the 10 games, but be fine. 86-87, he's hampered by a knee injury that year. Plays 68 games, 9 goals, 39 assists, 48 points. In the playoffs, 6 games, just the 3 assists for him that year. 87-88, his best offensive season, 75 games, 21 goals. It is the first of 3 times he'll hit the 20-goal mark in his career. 70 assists, which was 7th overall in the National Hockey League that season. 91 points. So really solid numbers overall in the playoffs. 9 games, 1 goal, 9 assists, 10 points. He finishes 3rd in Norris voting. That's the only time he's a finalist for the Norris. Plays in the All-Star game, and he was a second-team All-Star at the end of the year. So the sky's the limit, really, for Suter at this point. Now 88-89. He ends up having an appendectomy during the regular season that takes him out for a bit. Plays 63 games, 13 goals, 49 assists, 62 points. Now on the upside, he gets a Stanley Cup ring. On the downside, he only played 5 games that year and only had the 3 assists. Why? He had a broken jaw in round 1 against Vancouver. Did not return to play during the playoffs. But 3 assists in the 5 games he did play. Along with the Stanley Cup, he finished 7th in Norris voting that year. Did play in the All-Star game as well. So again, with Suter and MacInnis on the blue line and some of the offensive weapons Calgary had, coming out of that 1989 Stanley Cup, the question was, how many more can these guys win? We'd seen Edmonton win, 4 to that stage. Could Calgary win 2 or 3? And that was a question that they never did win another Stanley Cup, which to me to this day is kind of a surprise, because when you look at that team that Calgary had in the mid to late 80s and then into the earliest part of the 90s, they were a very good team pretty much from top to bottom. So 89-90 plays 76 games, 16 goals, 60 assists, 76 points. So again, offensively, really, really solid defenseman. In the playoffs, just the 1 assist in 6 games as they got upset in the first round. So defending Stanley Cup champions, and they were unceremoniously trounced from the playoffs. 90-91, 79 games played, 12 goals, 58 assists, 70 points. He played in the All-Star game that year. 7 games in the playoffs, 1 goal, 6 assists, 7 points. 91-92, and this is where the Flames are starting to drop off a little bit. So 70 games played, 12 goals, 43 assists, 55 points. 92-93, he really has another fantastic offensive season here. 81 games, 23 goals, 58 assists, 81 points. He was 7th in Norris voting. He adds 2 goals, 3 assists for 5 points in 6 playoff games. 93-94, we're now into a period where, Calgary, things are kind of being torn apart, and this team, a lot of changes are being made, and Gary Suter would get traded. Now, he also had a couple of knee injuries that year, so he's limited to 25 games with the Flames, 4 goals, 9 assists, 13 points. March 10th, he's traded to the Hartford Whalers. Yep. Along with Ted Drury, Paul Ranheim, in exchange for Michael Nylander, James Patrick, and Zarley Zalapski. He stays a Whaler for a grand total of 24 hours. So I hope he didn't get a Suter Whaler jersey. Although I guess that would be a collector's item now, wouldn't it? Anyways, March the 11th, he's traded with a 1995 third and Randy Cunnyworth to the Chicago Blackhawks in exchange for František Kuchera and Jocelyn Lemieux. So Suter's moved off to Chicago, and in Chicago he plays 16 games, 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points. So the offense has dropped off a bit there. In the playoffs, he adds 3 goals, 2 assists for 5 points in 6 games. Now he's a Blackhawk. 94-95, lockout shortened season, plays all 48 games, 10 goals, 27 assists, 37 points. In the playoffs, 2 goals, 5 assists, 7 points in 12 games. The Hawks at this point, good team, playoff team, Stanley Cup contender? Probably not, but still some good teams here. 95-96, he's part of a good team again. 82 games, 20 goals, 47 assists for 67 points. This is the final time he has 20 goals in a season in his career. In the playoffs, 10 games, 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points. He's 8th in Norris voting and plays in his final All-Star game. So 96-97, he plays all 82 games again, but the offense drops off. So 7 goals, 21 assists, 28 points there. In the playoffs, 6 games, 1 goal, 4 assists, 5 points. 97-98, the offense comes back. He plays 73 games that year, 14 goals, so he doubles his goal total, 28 assists, 42 points. But he can't come to a contract agreement with Chicago. They make him a couple of offers that became public, and just it wasn't the kind of money he was looking for, so he's traded. His signing rights are traded to the San Jose Sharks on June 27th for a 1998 ninth-round draft pick. Because, I mean, you have to get something for him, and yes, there were 9 rounds of the draft at one point in time. So 98-99, it's a season that's completely derailed. He has an infection in his triceps, microbe infection. He needs multiple surgeries for that. And they also discovered during this time he had a hole in his heart. So he had to have surgery for that as well. So he only appeared in 1 game for San Jose that season. And there was a lot of discussion about how his career was probably over. Maybe he should just retire. You've got this problem and you've got a hole in your heart. Well, maybe it's better if you just retire. He doesn't. 99-2000, 76 games played, 6 goals, 28 assists, 34 points. In the playoffs, he adds 2 goals, 5 assists for 7 points in 12 games. And when he did reach the 1,000 game mark, he was very emotional about that because of the 98-99 season, which was almost completely wiped out, minus the 1 game, because of various ailments, right? So 2000-2001, he plays 68 games, 10 goals, 24 assists, 34 points. He only plays 1 game in the playoffs because he got concussed in the first game of the playoffs. So he was not able to play for San Jose the rest of the time they're playing. 2001-2002, he played all 82 games that year. 6 goals, 27 assists, 33 points. In the playoffs, he adds 4 assists in 12 games. And he would retire the following season. So in his career, 1,145 games, 203 goals, 641 assists, 844 points. In the playoffs, 108 games played, 17 goals, 56 assists, 73 points. Now, when you look at these numbers, he's a defenseman. He never won a Norris Trophy, but you could make the argument, you could absolutely make an argument for Hall of Fame. But there's also with Gary Suter, there's the other incidents that take place. And generally speaking, the 2 highest profile incidents, one's in the National Hockey League and one isn't. Gary Suter would cross the line. And he crossed the line a few times. And playing for Team USA, Canadians weren't his biggest fan. I don't think he was the biggest fan. I don't think he had big fans in the former Soviet Union either. Because in the 1987 Canada Cup, he slashes Andre Lomakin, who would come over and play in the NHL a few years later, across the face, hard enough to break his stick. Lomakin needed 20 stitches to close up his face on that one. There was no suspension because it's not a National Hockey League game. Yep, Canada Cup, no suspension. And just think about it. This is one of those sticks in the 80s when you'd have splinters. So it's not like some of the composite sticks that just nothing seems to... Sometimes there's like a hairline, you can't see it, and the stick just breaks. No, this was bad. And again, if this happened now with a player, a guy gets slashed in the face so hard that the stick breaks, the internet would completely melt down, right? If that happened in an NHL game, the comment section would be ridiculous that night and days after. And there was no suspension. 1991 Canada Cup, where Canada decided we hate Gary Suter. It was a cross-check on Wayne Gretzky into the boards. Just cross-checked him from behind into the boards, hard enough that Gretzky missed the rest of the tournament. And so Suter was public enemy number 1 at that point because, what's a Canada Cup tournament without Gretzky? And, I mean, it was a good tournament, but that definitely put a damper on things, right? Because, again, it was something that people thought was cowardly. It was something I remember people commenting too, like he wouldn't have done that in the game if Marty McSorley had been on the bench, right? This is Team Canada. You've got all the superstars. You don't have a Marty McSorley who would have been on the Kings and would have been available to tap on the shoulder. And so that conversation goes back a long time. It's not a new conversation that when you see a star player take a rough hit, that somebody will jump up and say that wouldn't have happened if, and name, Ryan Reeves, Nick Delorier, whoever you want. If that guy's on the bench, that doesn't happen. So that was tough. But during January of 1998, this is an NHL one, and again, if this happened now and it was a 4-game suspension, yeah, good luck. I really don't think that this would have gone over well. So remember, he slashes Lemakin across the face, breaks his stick. Cross-checks Gretzky into the boards in 1991. Now, there's a lot of time between these incidents, but they don't get forgotten. January of 1998. We're about a month out from the 1998 Olympics. And so Team Canada's going over, and Paul Kariya is going to be, one of the centerpieces for the Canadian team. This should be great. Well, Kariya scores a goal. Gary Suter wasn't happy about it. I went over and cross-checked him in the head. And that caused Kariya to suffer a concussion. And of course, we know with Kariya that he suffered many concussions through his career, definitely shortened his career. And this one caused Kariya to miss the Olympics for Team Canada. Gary Suter was suspended by the NHL 4 games. Now, that 4-game period spanned the Olympics. So he was suspended from before the Olympics to after the Olympics. But the Olympics are held with the IIHF. So because the IIHF is holding that, and it happened in an NHL game, it's the same as the Canada Cup games aren't NHL games. So the NHL can't suspend him for something he does in the Canada Cup. The IIHF doesn't suspend Gary Suter for something that happened in an NHL game. He got to play in the Olympics when Kariya didn't. Numerous reasons that would have caused. Again, if we had a channel like this back in 1998, there would have been meltdowns. Numerous meltdowns from people about why is Suter allowed to play in this tournament while the guy he concussed that was supposed to be in this tournament is trying to recuperate. And again, not the first concussion suffered by Paul Kariya. So it definitely does put a cloud over Gary Suter's career, which is too bad because he was a very talented defenseman. The offensive numbers are excellent with Suter. 2002, he wins the Olympic silver medal at Salt Lake. And 2011, he was inducted into the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame, which was a no-brainer. He is one of the top scoring defensemen who are U.S. born in National Hockey League history. And again, really, really solid numbers all around. But the incidents where he would cross the line, I think, are the reason why. I can't remember the last time I heard somebody say, well, who should be in the Hall of Fame is Gary Suter. You really don't hear it. And yet, I do wonder if not for these incidents, if his name would have come up at least a little more regularly than it has. And it's too bad because he did have a really good career, but I totally understand why those incidents, no matter what source I was using for this video when I put this board together, those incidents get mentioned and they're gone into detail. And to this day, if you start typing into Google, Gary Suter, the first thing that shows up underneath his name is hit Gretzky into the boards, or Gretzky hit into the boards, something along those lines. And so it's still, all these years later, that was 1991. It is now 2023. That is still the number one thing that gets thought of with Gary Suter's name. Again, a shame, but totally understandable. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.